What's going on, everybody? My name is Eric Velasquez, and this is Alma City Agenda with our next candidate for today, Mr.
Dan Rossiter.
Dan Rossiter. Thank you for joining. It's been action-packed morning today. I hope you guys stay warm. So, how was your weekend this past weekend?
Warmer than currently. I kind of missed the weather already.
Right? Like, only in Texas would be 70 degrees, you're wearing shorts, and then it's like 4. And you're like shivering. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, and I was telling Eric before we started filming, I was thinking about not doing a jacket today, and then I walked outside and decided it was definitely a jacket weather.
Like, jacket and petticoat. So tell me about this unexpected. Like, was it unexpected for you, or did you already have plans like going in to a run?
Sure. So I've been thinking about this council seat for a few years now, but certainly the timeline was accelerated by recent events. I think most people figured it wouldn't make sense to run against a 3-term incumbent. So once it was an open seat, that definitely accelerated some of the plans. But it's now this has been in the works for a while.
Okay, all right. And just so you know, we picked this lighting. It was a gathering. We picked it. We're like, let's be a little bit different. So that's what it is. We're gonna get real here, all right? Okay. So tell me about what pushed you forward. Or like, what was that thought process of you like, I want to go ahead and put my hand in the ring for this reason?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. For the past 4 years, I've been the president of the Thunderbird Hills Neighborhood Association. And through that role, I've had the opportunity to work with constituents and hear some of the challenges they're going through in the district. And so one particular event that really catalyzed my desire to push forward with this was about 2 years ago now. We had a resident that lives at the intersection of Oak Hill and Ingram. And folks along that intersection for many years prior had been raising concerns with the council district about the vehicles that were running through the end of Oak Hill into their front yards. And so it's obviously terrible. And then the culmination was a resident had a vehicle end up in the bedroom where his wife was sleeping only a few feet away. And so that was 2 years ago. And then following that, I began, as the leader of that neighborhood at the time, working with both District 6 and 7, because that happens to sit right on the border between those districts. So both with Melissa's office and Ron's office, as well as with Public Works directly, with the Transportation Department directly, as well as even Parks to look at potential barriers that they could be involved in putting to protect these residents. But a multi-year process. I just actually last week got off a call with Tamika and her team in the Transportation Department looking at long-term plans for how we can reconfigure that road. It's right next to Holmes High School, so you've got all these kids walking every day home from school. Yeah. It needs to be safer. And so finding those kinds of opportunities where maybe the city hasn't gone to the level that it needs to be gone to protect our citizenry, that's just a critical need that it's so rewarding to be a part of the solution.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. Neighborhood associations, I feel, are pretty vital in good, thriving communities. Whereas, like, unfortunately, in some of like the lesser-known neighborhoods that don't get enough attention because they might not have a strong neighborhood association. Do you feel that is the case?
Absolutely. I think back to Thunderbird Hills, that has a long history of really great leaders. Jane Goodell. We have a park named after her. She's one of our founding mothers, if you will, of the neighborhood. But there was a lull in leadership where the neighborhood was about to disband, and I think most of these places are volunteer run. People have jobs, they have other things that they have to focus on, families, right? And so it's really hard. It's often a thankless job. It's so critical because the reality is, you look at the number of constituents served by any council district, we're looking at about 150,000 people. We're only 8 people in an office. We rely heavily on these organizations to draw our attention to where we need to be focusing. They're such a critical part of the governance for any council district.
Yeah, that's something that I haven't actually brought up as much as I wanted to. With a city council office or even like the Texas House of Representatives, how do you think that you will be able to combine all these organizations that do these um, back behind the scenes kind of work that we don't really see, but they do a lot of things like that. But what we've seen is these organizations don't talk to each other, so one might be doing something else that the other one's doing, but they're not talking to each other. They're doing double work. Absolutely. So how would you like to see that incorporated into the city council to where you guys are working?
Sure. So I think a critical part of that is keep lines of communication open, obviously between the council district and the neighborhoods, but also between the neighborhoods and the other neighborhoods. And so if you look at both District 6 and 7 do, and many other districts as well, they have maybe quarterly roundtable discussions where they bring these neighborhoods together. And a well-run example of that sort of thing is going to involve neighbors talking to each other, not the council member talking at them necessarily. Maybe there's some updates and things like that, but also bringing those neighborhoods together to discuss between themselves and identify where there's synergies they can take advantage of.
Yeah. This is the question I asked to the previous communities. How are you going to be able to relate to those constituents? Because you obviously, you've been on a lot of different boards and things like that, and different organizations. To constituents, like regular constituents that just have a day-to-day job, that, they might see a city council person or a candidate thinking, oh, well, this person thinks they know more, and they're talking down to me and not with me. How are you going to navigate that issue to where you're relating to those people?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think any council member who thinks they know more than the folks who are living out there in the situation are foolish. It's very much a collaborative effort where that role exists to amplify the needs of the folks out there. It's not for me to go and tell them what they're doing, right? It's to understand the problems and to work toward a solution that's going to address those needs in those neighborhoods.
Right. Yeah, definitely for sure. Lisa says Team Moses Roses. Oh, I guess I'm assuming that's the in regards to eminent domain. So, what are your thoughts on the eminent domain issue?
Sure. It's obviously an incredibly challenging topic. We're, as a state, founded on the principle of come and take it, right? I mean, look at the Alamo right over there. We're very protective of what we've worked for. And so I think while eminent domain is a critical tool that can enable critical infrastructure supporting the many over an individual having to sell a portion of land, sometimes eminent domain is justified and necessary to enable projects that benefit the greater good. I will say in regard to Moses Roses, it's a much more complicated discussion than some of the transportation or drainage focused ones, which I know Terry was talking about just a couple hours ago. I will say I don't have enough information on the specific case to say whether it's justified or not, but I can speak to economic development in general and the critical role it can play. So I sat for many years on the Brooks Development Authority Board of Directors, where our focus was driving economic development in a historically underinvested community on the south side of San Antonio. And I will say through that I learned a great deal about how economic development indirectly empowers so many different things, right? You generate revenue, which can in turn be reinvested into the community. It's not just about, all right, well, let's generate millions of dollars and pay it back to shareholders. No, ideally, if it's structured correctly, that's going right back into the community to support initiatives that are critical. I mean, we look at, let's talk about the bond program for a second, since it's a great segue to that. The bond program we just funded for the 2022 through 27 period was $1.1 billion, which sounds like a lot to you and me. I'd like that in my bank account. But it's in reality, it was a small fraction of the $6.6 billion in need that city staff would determine this is what actually is needed to address all the drainage, all the roadway, all the needs that exist throughout our city. And so we're working with a deficit. and we need to find ways to generate more revenue to address that deficit, which is the result of 100 years of underinvestment in certain areas of our community.
At what cost though do you think that's going to relate to? Because, look, I'll be honest with you, I feel like a lot of the council members are, yeah, we're doing this to generate wealth, but at the end of the day, these constituents are being hurt with property taxes, whereas you have, say for example, an entity over on the Brookside pays no taxes. Yes, they probably are letting the city hold function there or whatever, but they're not paying any property taxes, whereas the people in that area are being taxed out of their homes. How are you going to take that into effect and give the people confidence that you won't undercut them?
Sure. And obviously that's the hard balance to play, right? You want to balance the changes in property values with the improved quality of life that residents get. It's a hard balance to find. I don't claim to know the answer. I think if we had a crystal ball that told us exactly where that right line is, anyone would have it, but it's got to be a case-by-case basis and trying your best to quantify what the impacts of this particular investment are going to be and structuring it in such a way that the benefits outweigh the detriments.
How important is it to be fully transparent to the public and show that transparency? Because honestly, I don't see a lot of transparency, because my thought process of what other council members are saying is, well, it's just a day-to-day thing, and I have to make these decisions. So there's no point of telling every single thing that I vote on. What's your level of transparency that you can do?
Sure. So I would say that transparency, when I first began thinking about the pillars of this campaign, was the number one. So if you look at how council districts operate today, there is no public accountability for constituent concerns that were raised and what actions were taken. Right? It often requires follow-up. It often requires intentionality. And we've already talked about folks with jobs. They don't necessarily have the time to continue pressing. My goal, Director David, would begin conversations with ITSD, with the Office of Innovation, to establish a publicly accessible way for folks to see every constituent concern that is raised, what actions have been taken, what city departments have been engaged, what funding sources are we looking at to make it happen, and make that publicly available. So if we're not doing our job, the public will be equipped to point that finger and say we're not doing the job. Meanwhile, hopefully, if we are doing our job, they'll also recognize that. But I think that accountability and that transparency to what actions are being taken or not taken is a critical piece that does not exist today.
It's tough. It's like you said, it is a difficult line to balance, but there are some deliberate things that we're seeing, and it's just people have lost confidence in government. I mean, not that we should rely on government anyway, but we should at least have some sort of, at least the infrastructure is going to be fixed. What are some infrastructure things that you see recently that you're like, why hasn't this been fixed?
Sure. So actually, the biggest one I think that most Seven residents will be aware of is, well, there's two. Bandera Road and Drainage, Calabria being close third. So I actually had the chance to write and send into a report just a few months ago regarding Bandera Road and TxDOT's proposed work there. So I encourage the viewers to go check that out. But basically, the way I feel about what they're proposing, and after speaking with the engineers who did the study, TxDOT's taking the cheap way out. They're not making the investment necessary to support the folks who have been for decades now suffering with that oftentimes completely unusable road. I've sat in it as if it were a parking lot. I don't know how many times now. It's not acceptable. And I think the other challenge, drainage, is a clear challenge, and one that is particularly complicated, as is Bandera Road. because District 7's geographic layout and political layout is so far more complicated than most every other district in Leon Valley. That's not a dig on Leon Valley, it's simply an acknowledgement of the complexity when you have multiple government agencies involved. It's a whole lot easier to set up a bond program and fund something where the road is solely within San Antonio. When you have to devise a solution that has to get buy-in from the city of San Antonio, the city of Leon Valley, the Texas Department of Transportation, the county, you suddenly have a far more complicated task ahead of you. Right. And so I think whoever takes this job needs to be someone who is equipped to handle those multi-governmental agreements, negotiate the appropriate approach that is amenable to all those different entities while still addressing the constituent needs within District 7.
Yeah, definitely. Have you seen a lot of community engagement? Like, besides the neighborhood association, what have you found from the community itself that you weren't aware of?
So I will say, over the past 4 years, working with the Thunderbird Hills Neighborhood Association, it's been a constant learning experience. I think the biggest concerns that I hear are infrastructure, right? So, we want our potholes fixed, we want our drainage fixed, but I've also heard public safety is a huge one. I'll tell you where I live, it is basically every night I hear gunshots. Just 2 days ago, one of my fellow neighborhood presidents raised to me a shooting that occurred in an apartment complex about a mile from that. A husband and wife were coming home for the grocery shop around 7 p.m. and someone approached them. Thankfully, the wife was able to get away. The husband was shot. Survived, to the best of my knowledge, last I checked. But that was them walking home from HEB. We all deserve to feel safe in our own homes. On the flip side of that, you look at some of the climate that's happening today and some of the misbehavior by teens. Clearly, that's something that has to be curbed. And I think San Antonio has largely done a good job at mitigating those sorts of things happening here. There's still work to be done. And I think that anyone who goes in without a mind towards how can we better improve it to ensure that communities feel safe, both from police and from bad actors.
Yeah. Well, and I know that it's a big portion of the budget. And people are like, well, we're funding all this stuff for the police and things are doing worse, because I mean, we were on top of homicide rates, right? Compared to I just saw it, I was like shocked. We're right top in homicides, it's crazy. But when you see that, what do you think you can do and not sever that communication with the police?
Sure. I mean, I think the San Antonio public has been clear. They did an SA Speak Up survey a few months back, and the answer of priorities was number one, housing affordability, no shock there, and then number two was police, number three was fire, and number four was infrastructure. San Antonians want to be kept safe in their homes, so I think that the budget accounts for that. But at the same time, again, a continuing conversation, a continuing effort to ensure that we are building a system that is accountable, is not abusing the powers that they have to mistreat our constituents is critical.
Yeah, very true. And switch gears. Not be so serious. I'm not serious. What is your favorite spot to eat in the district?
So I think the most San Antonio place I can think of in Seven, it cracks me up because of how it has evolved, is the donut shop off of Fredericksburg. Where else but San Antonio do you have a donut shop that's known only for their breakfast tacos? Yeah.
When I heard that, I was like, are these guys on crack or something? Or what's going on? Like, I don't understand. But yeah, like, I went there, I was like, okay, it's not bad. It's not bad. Like, the weird thing is that people block traffic now, which is a concern.
Yes.
But people still navigate their way around it, and it's fine. So, but I just think it's yeah. that is what I think it was voted like best taco place in San Antonio at one point. So, and speaking of local places, we are at Wild Barley, which we're here a lot. Wild Barley Kitchen and Brewery from Broadway. They're our sponsored vacation for today. So come on by. Whenever we do these interviews, you can come down as well and ask questions directly to the candidate. Um, Grab a bagel or a beer or whatever you want. And just come down and hang out. So thank you, Wild Barley. As far as voting changes, what are your thoughts on changing up the voting method to like approval voting or ranked choice voting? Or do you think we're okay with this?
It's an interesting question. I've looked a little bit at ranked voting and some of the implications that has to how things work, right? It's basically saying, okay, well, this is my candidate that I like the most, but if I had to not have that person as the best option, in theory, it seems like it could be a better solution because now it just makes more sense to me, right? It's not a all or nothing thing. It's not like if I don't have this candidate, then I'm SOL. There's nothing that they can do for me. So, but it does require a level of voter education that would be challenging, right? It's hard enough, speaking from my own personal experience, it's hard enough to become familiar enough with the candidates to pick my first pick. If I've now got to go and turn around and learn about 3 or 4 more per race, it's that's pretty tricky.
Yeah, well, and at the end of the day, like I said at the end of the last show, is you gotta learn who your candidates are. Like, and that's the whole reason why I do this is to learn who they are, what they're about, instead of just like I said, pulling up to the polling station and in your car and looking up, oh, who's this?
I've definitely never done that before.
My wife was like, "What are you doing right now?" I was like, "I'm looking at the candidates." And she's like, "Shake my head." I was like, that's not how you reason. That's not the way it's so yeah, I mean, definitely look at the candidates. Ranked choice though is illegal in Texas. So even if we were to pass ranked choice voting in San Antonio, it would be illegal and we can't even use it. Because Austin passed ranked choice voting last year, and they can't use it. So it needs to change in the legislature. But approval voting would be acceptable. So if you were to change approval, and that's basically you can vote for whoever you want. You can vote for all 5 candidates if you wanted to, just whoever has the most votes. And there isn't a ranking system where we saw that in New York that the ranking system just failed. It was like 4 or 5 days afterwards, and nobody knew who won, and it was a mess. And it wasn't a good look for ranked choice. But at the end of the day, I think like Austin saw it needed change. Can't use it. I think San Antonio is maybe wanting to change, but I think we still have some problems with how our stuff is right now and all that. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, we'll see what happens. It's interesting. There's definitely a lot of different options, and we've traditionally kind of gone with pick the one, and so that's what everyone's used to. It'd certainly be a huge education effort to change.
It would, but I think it would eliminate runoff elections, which is a big one. There's a lot of millions of dollars that goes into just holding the elections. So just a thought. What about self-care for yourself? Self-care for yourself, or hobbies, or whatever.
Sure. So I own a small business. It's a real estate company where I go and pick up basically the worst house on the block, and I'll go and give it new life, and then I'll hold it long term and rent it out. And so I think self-care for me is the demolition day. I love demo day. I love getting to go and swing a hammer. I still do most of the work myself. And so it's I got to tear out an old shower stall from 50 years ago a few weeks back, and that was pretty fun.
What's the craziest thing you've ever found?
Oh my gosh! So my personal residence, I'll tell a quick story here. So I bought a single family home, and I converted it into a duplex, and so I lived in effectively a studio apartment, and then the main house was rented. So I had to go through the zoning process, which was kind of my first encounter with those sorts of things with the city. I had to go through the permitting process, everything else. But the studio that I live in now was originally built to be a salon. And so the previous owners had been running a little business out of there, in this 500 square foot space, and they had built a space that was entirely fitting a full-on hot tub. This is the second floor, mind you. Right. A full-on hot tub that they had to build this room around. Could not be moved in or out. It was literally built around this tub, and it had a tiny little sink, and that was it. And so when I first walked in, myself and my real estate agent, both our jaws just hit the ground.
Was it carpeted?
Thankfully. Thankfully, no. Yeah, that'd be worse. But so it required, talk about fun demolition, it required getting a sawzall out and cutting this tub in half to get it out and throwing it down the stairs. But that was a fun experience.
So, yeah, I mean, that's really cool. Like, so, okay, so you're in real estate. How can you gain the trust of the public for them to say, to not just think of you as just somebody who's trying to take over the market, raise the prices up and all that stuff?
Sure. So I will tell you that generally the neighbors around that worst home on the block that I go pick up are thanking me. I've had families come out and offer to bake me a cake or whatever else, because that's just, it's not like I'm going into a blighted neighborhood and going and artificially raising the values of homes that would be disproportionate to the homes around them. It's going and taking that home that hasn't been taken care of for decades, while all the neighbors around them are, and going and bringing it up to level with where everything else is at. So in those instances, it's avoiding artificially dropping their property values because there's that one home that's not being taken care of.
Yeah, because that's a big issue right now, and I mean it's been an issue, but it's really focused on it now because now we're seeing record numbers of people protesting their taxes. You can protest your property taxes if you haven't figured that one out yet. I haven't heard about that. Please protest your property taxes every single year. But yeah, we always see the worst, like these people are coming in and buying homes, and then, yeah, like you were saying, not making it look the same. It's high class or whatever, and really nice, and yeah, then these people are getting frustrated. And when you look at like Tobin Hill, that place is really like night and day. Like you just see different houses, and it's just like people are upset.
And I don't think that that's appropriate. I think there's a level of responsibility that you need to take on when you take on these sorts of projects. Work within where that neighborhood is designed to be. You can tell the spirit of it. You can tell what is the appropriate sort of finish to put on a given home based off what's around it. I think the folks that are going in and artificially taking neighborhoods, and you're clearly going to create an issue of them being able to stay in their home. I think that's irresponsible.
So it sounds like you're young. I'll take it. What's your plan to address the houseless population? Because I'm sure December is not as bad as the District of Columbia, but what's your plan on addressing that or voting with your peers in addressing those situations?
Right. So I think first and foremost, I would give a shout out to Haven for Hope and Sam Main Street and all these other organizations out there that have been the backbone of providing housing for the folks that need it. We have an incredible community in San Antonio that's really built that safety net for folks who live in homelessness. I think to have a challenge many, including Haven for Hope, many of those organizations will not allow folks who are actively using drugs or who are not willing to abide by some of the rules that exist within those homeless organizations that are going to support them. And so I think that's the biggest gap we see as a community. I don't know the right answer for how to handle that, because you obviously for the folks who are taking advantage of those services, you want them to be able to take the safety nets around the folks who are breaking down and everything else. But at the same time, clearly, as a community, we need to have a solution for each and everyone who has access to housing, whether they choose to take it or not. So point to all that as there's a clear answer. It's something we've struggled with as a community for a long time. And it's just going to be an ongoing thing that we're going to have to continue to adjust policy and continue to refine as we learn more about what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, when you see, you're going to run into the constituents. You need to take that this encampment, and then you have the other passion for them. You know, it's rough. You know, it's you see them tearing down the encampments at 35, maybe more needed. You know, some people say without any resources, we don't know. We don't know what's happening at the end of the day, but you know, I think what people really want to see is, are you guys going to city council going to do something effort to do something positive in the right way, humane, right? You know, we can't help everyone, but you can at least try. You know, and I think there are some people that are just like, no, we just need to do it. That's not.
Man, there's so many options.
So nothing. Got it. It's never been the time.
No. It's figuring out which of the many instances. So I will tell you as a philosophy, I enjoy being attacked because I've never done before. So it's jumping back to when I bought my home and decided to convert that into a duplex. I never gone through the zoning process before. I had never gone through the permitting process. I had never done a major renovation project, which is huge volume of work I did myself. And going through and learning all of that, working with the city, working with CPS, working with all the different organizations to go through and do it correctly, a huge learning process for me. And I will tell you, it's basically every day I didn't know what I was doing and I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
But I think that's how we grow as individuals, is to continue pushing our boundaries and taking on things that we don't know, and just accepting that we'll sink or swim.
Yeah. What's your plan on bridging the gap between city council, District 7, and the youth?
Sure. So I think youth engagement is critical. We've got a bunch of great high schools in the area who are getting the first to get involved. Through Thunderbird Girls, we've got a chance to get engaged with a number of different schools out there. There's high school as well as the elementaries we've got out there. So Powell Elementary, which is on the District 7 side, or Bloomington Elementary on the District 6 side. There's just an opportunity to get them engaged. It's no secret that we've got such a low percentage of folks involved in our elections, especially these local elections that aren't tied to the big high-profile presidential races, and helping them understand that these local elections are so much more impactful than who's in the White House. At the end of the day, the impact that your council member has in your day-to-day is so much greater than who sits in the White House.
Well, I think it didn't help them to that. Teaching them tell people how to get a hold of you, how to help, donate, volunteer, whatever.
Absolutely. So we just soft launched our website yesterday. So if you go to dan4d7.com, we've got some information on the platform. It's still being developed, so we're going to build out some more content over the next few days. But dan4d7.com. You can email us from there and get in touch with me as well as the rest of the campaign. We've also got a donate button if you feel so inclined. These campaigns are expensive, and so every $1 helps. We'll be out block walking, and if you have any events in the neighborhood that you'd like us to be involved in, we've already reached out to all the registered neighborhoods in the district. Otherwise, there's all kinds of other organizations that are meeting, and if you'd like me to come out, I'd be very happy to do that. Just reach out to me there. And you can also email me directly if you want to, Dan at Dan, the number 4d7.com. I'll also respond to those.
Awesome. At least you didn't do it like Dan the man, you know. Dan the man for D7.
I've never heard that one before.
No, but
immediate no vote, right?
Yeah. Nope. But awesome, yeah. What was I gonna say? Man, I forgot what I was gonna say. There was gonna be some engagements. Oh, if I don't like to say if, but you know, if whatever happens and you get elected or your term ends or whatever, you don't get elected, will you continue like public service or something in that avenue, or will you just take it off the floor, or like this kind of?
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's I've been involved in the community 4 years with Thunderbird Hills, and before that, a number of years with the Condo Association on numerous boards and commissions. I like to serve my community, and obviously we're planning to win this race. We're going to do everything to make sure that happens. But regardless of the outcome, I'll continue to serve and bring my talent, my treasure, and my time to support the community I live in to the extent that I'm able.
Yeah, because a lot of times when people are dealing with their challenges or whatever, just and I get it because it's a lot. It's hard to wonder like, really, it's, at the end of the day, like, yeah, they're serving for their challenges or they're waiting for us at the beginning, like, or are they just, you know what I mean?
Was it a jumping off point for
the
next thing, right?
Yeah. So, awesome. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Well, thank you, Dan. You guys know how to get a hold of them. You know how to go on to your blog. Are you having blog?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're getting our prep material put together and should be printed by the end of this week. And so we'll be kicking off block walking immediately thereafter. So if you've got cycles, that's realistically the most demanding part of the campaign is boots on the ground. And so if you've got time and you'd like to support in that way, we'd really love to have you. Again, reach out on our website. We've got a number 4d7.com, and you can reach us there, and we'd love to talk to you.
Would you be polite No, it's cold, guys, but still, you can still walk it off. Walk it off a little bit. And right now that it's not super hot, because when it gets hot, it sucks.
Yeah, so it's really bad. I will take this over 108.
Yeah. You're like, am I going to pass out? Or... Awesome. Well, thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Thank you guys for joining and watching. It's just 2 ago right now. Okay, so we'll see how this race goes. If there's going to be anybody else that jumps in last minute, I think February.
It's middle of February. I forget the exact date. Yeah.
So middle of February when those names have to be put in. So just keep an eye out. We'll be hopefully doing some District 3. We're going to try to do all of them. So, but yeah, just keep an eye out. Keep bringing those questions. Again, when we come back and do another episode here at Wild Barley, feel free to come down. Support small businesses. Any of these businesses that we're at, please support them, especially if you're in your district, in the city council district. Support them because all that money that goes back into the district will just keep helping that district out. So just please keep doing that. And stay tuned for more interviews. So thank you guys. This is Elvis on the agenda. Have a great day.